Subnautica and its sequel Below Zero have some weird and wacky looking creatures, ranging from cute and innocent to downright horrifying. But even with a literal ocean of alien life for us to discover, there could have been so much more for us to sink our teeth into if all the game's cut creatures had made it into the final release. So let's hit rewind on 4546B and see what could have been. Coming in first on our list of cut creatures is the Reefback. Wait, what? This creature was definitely in the game, I hear you say. And you would be right. That is, mostly, because there was actually a version of the creature designed for Below Zero that never made it into the full release. I present to you the Icebreaker, a cold weather adapted Reefback with an enlarged fin to smash its way through the ice. This creature was specially evolved to launch itself on top of the ice and use its massive weight and cutting prow to slice through any icebergs in its path. This version of the creature also had small claws on the side of its body to stop any ice getting into its siphons. This chilly relative of the Reefback could have had a big impact on gameplay by breaking apart huge chunks of ice and opening up new areas of the map. It also functioned as a resting ground for Pengwings, but unfortunately it just wasn't meant to be, and the creature never made it past its concept art stage. Now, while we're on the subject of Pengwings, they used to look a little different too. Here we have one of the original Pengwing designs, which looks even more alien than the one we got in game. With two twitching antennae, a green eye, and a pink glowing egg chamber that retracted on land, these guys are certainly unique. We also had a version that looks slightly like a waterbound rat, with a long nose, webbed feet, and fins, but both of these designs were canned quite early in the game's development. We would finally end up with the version that we know today, but a few different colour schemes were tried out before the final version was agreed, with some very funky reds and greens proposed for the creature's final colour. Slithering in at number 3 on our list, we have the Gardener Eel. This strange looking creature was said to have a mini ecosystem containing a small plant attached to its body. When on land, the creature would use this to produce sugars through photosynthesis using sunlight, and when on the move it would swallow this back into its body for protection. The creature also had small hunting hooks for feeding on small fish when in the water. Comments from the creature's designer suggests it would have been about a metre tall, which is about half the size of the player. Personally, I quite like this one, and I definitely think it would have helped Below Zero's world feel more alien. Coming up next, we have the Electrogami. Patrick here was said to be positively buzzing about being in the game, but unfortunately he never made it off the design paper. This electrically charged creature was said to open its body when attacking and use its shocking tendencies to stun its prey, allowing it to consume it before it could recover or escape. There was also a second version of this creature known as the Shockstar, which while looking very similar would focus more on creating shockwaves that could push back you in your vehicles. Unfortunately, we don't know which of these designs came first, but neither would make it into the final version of the game, so how big or dangerous it would have been to the player is unknown, but it certainly would have made an interesting addition to Sector Zero's seas. The Reaper Leviathan is a familiar friend to seasoned Subnautica players, which makes its absence in Below Zero even more mysterious, but you might be surprised to know that this wasn't always the case. The Crested Reaper was set to be the icy cousin of the original Reaper, and it was implied to be highly intelligent like orcas here on Earth. This cold weather adapted creature had a large crest for ramming icebergs. This would knock any animals resting on top of the ice into the water where they could be devoured, along with the other small fish that made up the creature's diet. Unlike its tropical cousin, the Crested Reaper's mandibles would be forward facing, opening outwards to reveal its mouth and sharp teeth. Design concepts for the game say the creature was to be a similar size to an orca, which would make it 6 to 8 metres long. This is significantly smaller than a standard Reaper's 55 metre length. We don't know if this creature would hunt alone or in small groups like traditional orcas, but it's safe to say that this is one of the most interesting creatures that was proposed for Below Zero, and one that I would love to see resurrected in the future. Sea monkeys are a creature that you either love or you really hate, but our grabby little friends didn't always look the way we know them today. The sea monkey actually went through a number of different designs before full release. At one stage, these creatures had retractable tentacles sticking out of their faces and could move around on land using their fins. Another similar version of the creature had a retractable sucker that would have been used for stealing its treasure. One completely different design had backwards facing tentacles used for movement, with the fins on the ends of these tentacles used as feet to walk around on land. In this design, the creature would hold any loot it had managed to steal using jaws in the middle of its body. Good luck to anyone trying to get anything back off these little guys. Another design for the creature had it looking more like a crab with legs and claws. This version of the sea monkey monkey was said to be related to Subnautica's crab squid, with the creature attracted to the electrical items brought to the planet by humans due to the electrical charge present in its body. The final piece of concept art for the sea monkey shows a creature that looks very similar to the first game's warpers. It was proposed that the architects had used the creature as inspiration for their mechanical enforcers, due to their strong senses, curious natures, and great ability to adapt quickly to many different environments. Ultimately, these designs were all scrapped to give us the sea monkey we know today, but it's interesting to see what could have been. Next on our list of cut creatures, we have the Bulldog Trapjaw. This would have been a medium-sized creature on par with bone and sand sharks. The creature had a large pair of mandibles for hunting and for pulling prey into its tooth-covered mouth. It appears the creature was able to store these jaws back inside its body, allowing it to surprise its target at a moment's notice, which is likely what gave the creature its name. Subnautica has its fair share of large creatures, and the next candidate on our list is no exception. The Thalassacean was proposed to be a large filter-feeding leviathan that would passively roam the planet's seas, hoovering up tiny plankton to sustain its massive body. While we don't have the exact dimensions for this creature, you can see in this concept art that it was likely going to be much bigger than you. Some of the colours used for the creature are pretty unique, and definitely captures that alien feel. It's possible that these creatures were cut from below zero in favour of the glow whales, which do serve a similar role, but we just can't say that for sure. Next on our list, we have the Ascender Worm, and as the name suggests, this creature would attempt to rapidly take its victim to the surface by inflating itself with gas and pulling them upwards. This change in pressure would then kill the target, allowing for the Ascender Worm to eat its now helpless prey. Funnily enough, even the creature's designer was happy this one didn't make it into the full game, so maybe we should be thankful for that one too. Now, if you look closely at this brute shark, you might notice it looks slightly under the weather, and that's because our next creature isn't really a traditional creature at all. It's a parasite called Rotnest. This parasite would infect creatures through the use of small spores, slowly taking over and corrupting the creature's body to make it work towards the parasite's goals. Once infected, the victim would become covered in cysts, with the creature's eyes replaced by the parasite's own eye nodes to help it guide and control its host more effectively. The Rotnest's tentacles would protrude from the creature's mouth and body to provide the parasite with oxygen while it eats its victim alive from inside out. The parasite would then spread further by launching itself out of the creature's body using newly created spores, causing damage and infecting anything it touches. Eventually, the Rotnest's original host would die from the infection, with the parasite feasting on what remained. The Rotnest also had an even crazier design, which resulted in some kind of crystal infection. Although the info we have about this is limited, this would have given the creature some kind of mineral launching attack. One possible use for these spores or crystals was proposed to be medical or weaponry benefits for the player in-game, if they managed to get hold of them before they exploded. This feels like a souped up version of what the Carabacteria could have been in the original game, so it's a shame we never really got to see this, as it could have had a really interesting effect on gameplay. Now, all you arachnophobic should probably look away now, as our next creature, called the Shardrunner, is probably your worst nightmare. This creature was said to be an ambush predator that hid within the crystal caves, creating long tripwire-like webs out of the crystals. If you happen to touch these tripwires, the creature would either reel you in or launch itself at you in order to attack. Now, that would be one hell of a jump scare, but with the developers not content with just one spidery foe, we also have the Lightspinners, which, while looking similar in colour, would have acted more like traditional spiders. The creature was said to be attracted to the lights and noises made by your vehicle. They would then latch onto your hull and cover it in webbing. This would then slowly reduce your speed due to drag. After spending so much time in the water, sometimes it can be nice to get some fresh air, and with the Kitewing Skyray, you will definitely be getting plenty of that. This winged behemoth is a relative of the much smaller Skyray, and would use its massive talons to grab its prey and take it back to its nest. Just imagine what it could have been like to see a massive shadow appear overhead before being plucked out of the water. Unfortunately, a 3D model of this creature was never created, so these concept images are all we have to go by, but this creature certainly had a lot of potential. Maybe one could have taken you to an inaccessible area, or even attacked your base if it was on land. Due to its airborne nature, we could see this one again someday in the future. I definitely wouldn't rule it out. Descending back below the waves, we have the Sand Spear, which appears to be a combination of the sand shark and the ice worm. The Sand Spear was said to have been an ambush predator, burying itself in the sand and using its tentacles to detect vibrations in the water above it. Once a creature had got close enough, the Sand Spear would launch itself out of the ground, open its spiky jaws, and try to take a chunk out of it. This is similar to how ice worms act, just on a much smaller scale. Maybe this one being cut is a good thing. Good luck trying to get any resources off the seafloor with this thing around. Moving away from the sandy shallows, we now move into the deep Arctic, a cut biome that would have originally been the home to the formidable ice dragon. This creature had a few similar looking designs, all with large fins resembling wings, which which really makes this creature look like a dragon despite living underwater. These large fins had claws for defense which could be retracted inside the body to make it more streamlined when moving around. The creature actually had two designs for its head. The first would fire small organisms at its prey that would explode on impact, kind of like small living missiles or the spores of the Rotnest. These organisms were actually grown within the creature's head, and if caught before exploding could be used to gather useful chemicals. The second version of the creature's head resembled more of a traditional dragon. Projecting a type of ice breath from its mouth, these super cooled ice crystals would then freeze the target on impact, requiring time or certain player actions in order to break out. This version of the creature was the one actually put into the game, having a full model created rather than just being a piece of concept art, but this was later deleted after the biome it lived in was cut from the final release. So that was a little glimpse at some of the creatures that could have been. If you could pick one to put into the game today, which would you pick? Full credit for these designs goes to Alex Reese and the other Subnautica game designers. I'll leave a link down below so you can check them out for yourself. And now you've learned all about these cut creatures, you should watch this video next to learn about the ones that actually made it into the game. Some of these facts may just surprise you. And special thanks to my patrons, Asmodeus Matthias, Still Redacted, and Graham DeLoye for making this video possible.